Welcome to another edition of Florida U Judge. I'm here today with Carl Hinson. He is running for in the 13th Circuit, which is comprised of Hillsborough County, Group 3 Circuit Court Judge. Welcome to Florida U Judge.
Thanks for having me, Don.
If you could just briefly introduce yourself to the viewers of your experience, but within the community as well as your experience as a legal practitioner.
Okay, I'm a Tampa native. I was born at Tampa General Hospital. I went to the public school system, graduated from Hillsborough High School, and I went on to University of South Florida, got a degree in business, went on to law school at Nova down in Fort Lauderdale. I've been practicing going on my 29th year. I am married to a lovely wife of 26 years and have a lovely daughter who's 11 and a half. I've been active in the community both with charitable events. I've also been with the legal field of things with the Hillsborough County Bar, the Carrollwood Bar, the Plant City Bar, and I have been in the solo practice of my profession, on my own profession, my own shop for the last 24 years.
And I will say this, I did look you up on Facebook. You are, it's like every day, every other day, you're at some place doing something with some organization. So congratulations to that and your community involvement.
Right.
I'm going to just, before I get started on our series of questions so that the viewers understand, because you're running for a judicial position, the rules governing judicial candidates are substantially different than their regular candidate. There's the rules of the canons of judicial conduct apply not only to sitting judges, but also to judges that individuals running for judge. And because of that, we give each of these individuals who are running for any position an opportunity to read the questions we're going to ask so that they do not make a mistake. The most important thing is we do not want to contribute to any JQC complaints by a candidate misspeaking because they were not prepared for the question that would be propounded. So we,
Right.
For a matter of disclosure, we've given everybody the same questions, and we would ask each the same questions. Tell us about your experience. You had 24 years. Was there one area of law, several areas of law that you pretty much concentrated on?
Well, early in my career, when I was in law school, I had the privilege of clerking for 3 judges. One was Judge Bill Grable, was a criminal judge. Spent some time there.
And he was up in Temple Terrace.
He was Temple Terrace, yes.
Part of the Temple Terrace.
He was appointed by Bob Graham. He was a civil trial lawyer, and he finished up and did his entire career in criminal. I clerked for Judge Julius Cheatwood in the civil trial division, and I clerked for Judge Giglio in the family law division. And then when I got out of law school, I went to work for a solo practitioner, and basically I got trial real quick experience because the first 6 weeks or 6 months I was there, we were already in a trial where I was picking the jury and going from there, and I kind of liked the niche of it. Then I've worked at other places. 24 years ago I decided to, or 21 years ago I decided to open up my own shop and mostly doing civil trial work.
We at Florida U Judge, we have an annual judge survey. Do you have any thoughts on judge surveys and whether we should even have them or whether there may be some bias built into the surveys based on participants?
I think, Don, that they're a good measuring stick of the judges that are on the bench. It's like a job performance. It's evaluation. Some of it may be biased, but it depends on how they skew. If it's only 2 lawyers that participate that may have had bad rulings, then I think it's a bad evaluation. But if it's a pool of 100 lawyers and they all participate, I think it's a good tool because that gives the judges a chance to maybe clarify some issues that they're having problems with, whether their demeanor or their respect to the people that come in front of them. So I think like in any job, circuit judges, we're not lifetime appointments. Every 6 years you're up for re-election, and it's an elected office, and you're working for the people of Hillsborough County.
Why do you want to be a judge?
Tampa is my home, and I've always had this goal when I clerked for those 3 judges, and my cousin Ed Hinson was a judge. I wanted to give back to the community, and they laughed at me early in my career, saying, I think within 5 years I'll be a judge, or 6 years I'll be a judge, because I saw the respect and the gratitude that these gentlemen had when they served the people of Hillsborough County. And they laughed. They said, no, you got to go out and practice in the real world. So that way you know what happens back at the office when judges make decisions. One of the things that lawyers never want to hear is, I'll take it under advisement. You take it under advisement, that means delay. It could be 6 months, 6 weeks. So I think that this is my home. I'm still a lot of knowledge that I can add to the bench. I have a lot of support from lawyers that are backing me because they know that I'll do the fair and honorable thing, follow the law. That's what people want. And when a judge is going to listen to them, going to make decisions and follow the law.
When we do these interviews with candidates, they obviously don't come around like, I'm a mean son of a gun, and they come around with this even demeanor, nice tempers, and that there are times, sometimes judges get on the bench, and some would call it black robitis. And again, this is one of the questions we propound to you. What should citizens do when a judge who comes across as being fair and even demeanored turns out to be a little bit more disrespectful and discourteous?
I've been on the other side, Don, of that robitis. As I said earlier, when re-election time comes and someone is filed against that particular judge, someone who is qualified to maybe replace that judge, then the voters of Hillsborough County should make a decision whether or not that judge who has developed that robitis should stay on the bench or should be removed by another lawyer to give that person a chance.
Would you give different treatments or treat participants differently, for instance, the private lawyer as opposed to the public defender lawyer as opposed to the pro se litigant?
I would not. I think that everybody, the only issue you have as a pro se litigant, it's kind of hard for them to comprehend the rules of evidence and the rules of discovery. You have to spend a little bit more time with them. You would assume whether they're a private attorney or a public defender or a state attorney, they're trained in the rules of evidence and discovery. But the one thing you want when you have a pro se litigant, this is their only day potentially in court, and they want to make sure that they get a fair shot or a fair hearing. So I can't be an advocate for them, but I can guide them along through the process. I can explain to them the importance. I know they want to do it pro se, but the importance of having qualified legal counsel to preserve any evidentiary rulings that I may not make, or make them right or make them wrong. So that's what I would do.
I will make a somewhat of commentary here. We talk about the question we provided to you is the massive dockets and how do you manage massive dockets. I'm not a big believer that we have the massive dockets that it's purported to be, but assuming these dockets are as massive as they purport to be, what can you do to help move these dockets along?
Well, the first thing, massive dockets, and I go back to my experience working in Judge Grable's division many years ago. You have defendants there that with speedy trial issues, and he would always make sure that on a particular day when you set out for dispositions, that you didn't put 65 or 75 dispositions. You monitored carefully that you had like 40 to 45, and you would get with your clerk, because you're working as a team with your clerk, your bailiff, your court reporter, to make sure that everybody's going to have their fair day. Unfortunately, if you have a big docket, you just got to work through it. You got to make sure that everybody that comes in there gets their time allotted to argue their case and their defenses.
The Florida Supreme Court has been at least indicating their concern that the amount of jury trials have continued to drop over the years. Now, we're really talking both criminal and civil, but as a criminal practitioner, there's been a substantial decrease in the amount of criminal jury trials. Some of the apprehension by defendants is they think they get punished for having their right to go to jury trial. What techniques, or how would you try to explain to a defendant in a criminal case that he or she is not going to be punished simply because they've chosen to go to a trial?
You stress to them before trial that they understand that they have a constitutional right for a jury of their peers to decide whether or not they're guilty or not. And that the sentencing is going to be the same regardless if it comes back with a guilty verdict or potentially a plea. But I can't advise them beyond that because they have counsel, and once again, that's not the role of the judiciary. The role of the judiciary is to make sure they don't have that apprehension, make sure that they believe that when they look at me, based on what their lawyers have told them, say, look, this is Judge Hinson, I can tell you what I know about him. He's going to follow the law. He's not going to punish you if you go to trial. Because I don't want to get in a situation where I want to clear out my docket and say, all right, let's have a bunch of open pleas or let's have some negotiated pleas. Because, there's some people that believe they have a defensible case and on the defense side that they want to have their day heard in court and they want 6 jurors to find them guilty or not. So I don't think the judges need to get in that aspect.
There was recently, within the last year, a judge I believe over on the East Coast, that challenged a public defender to a fight. I don't know if you heard about that, and out the back door they went.
Right.
So the question we ask is, can you think of any justification why a judicial officer would ever treat an attorney or any type of litigant with this impatience or discourteous or being disrespectful towards them?
I saw that videotape and I was appalled by it. Because what that judge did, he lost control of his courtroom. The main thing is that people that come before judges want to respect the people that they come before. And you have to maintain the demeanor and the control of it. And the fact that he challenged a public defender because that public defender was doing what he thought was right, not agreeing to waive to a speedy trial, I thought was over the top. Judges are human. They sometimes have a day full of all kind of antics, but they got to get through that. And they need to keep control and composure, because once you show that demeanor that you're a hothead or you've lost control of your entire courtroom and all the litigants that come before you and even the lawyers.
What is your position on an attorney who's moving to withdrawal simply because their basis is they have not been paid by their client?
In our world, we do it by irreconcilable differences have occurred. I'm not opposed to that, because you can't force a lawyer to represent a client if they're not being paid. The one thing you have to balance, though, is you want to make sure that there's no deadlines, or like in our world, the statute of limitations is about ready to run, or speedy trial. So it's a fair balance. I can't force a lawyer to stay in a case that he believes the client's not paying him, because not saying the lawyer will take it out on the client, but there's going to be that mistrust there. So I mean, you want to make sure, okay, you're getting out, I understand, but I want somebody to get him competent counsel within a certain amount of days, or maybe a month. Don't delay it.
How should a judge deal with attorneys when there are conflicts with their calendar? In other words, attorney's got to be in your courtroom, but they may have to be someplace else, either within that court or even maybe in another county.
Happens all the time, Don. And it happened to me in my career years ago when I had a trial in Hillsborough County and a trial in Pinellas County set for the same time, same day. And I filed my notice of conflict. The Hillsborough County judge, who I won't remain nameless, was not going to let me out. But we worked it out. Basically, logistically wise, it happens. And that's what I add. I've been in that situation. I understand that not everything's a perfect world. You basically give into the lawyer's deference and you work around their calendar. You can always push it off later in the afternoon or give them another date, convenient to them and the parties all involved.
How should a judge deal with the level of anxiety as people who's never been in a system before, whether they're involved in a eviction case or they're involved in a minor criminal charge like petty theft? They're just scared. They've never been there. How would you deal with that level of anxiety by somebody who's quite unfamiliar with our system?
Well, you basically try to explain to them the legal system, how it works. And that's one of the things that I can add is that, I've been a solo practitioner for 21 years and I deal with individuals that come off the street every day that never part of legal. So I basically have to explain to them the law, whether or not they have a viable defense or viable claim. And you try to make them ease at mind that, every case is different. It's not read what you in the paper, the horror stories, maybe like, in Broward County or over in Brevard County. But you just make them feel that we're in a great society, a great country, that we have laws that help people, whether they break them or not. There's always a right to a jury trial, and they shouldn't feel apprehensive at all to go into court.
Should the 40-hour work week be the very least that a judge should work, or should be the minimum a judge should work? I mean, the maximum the judge should work.
It certainly is not the maximum. I mean, sometimes I think judges are 24/7, should be, because in criminal judges, they'll get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning, need a warrant signed, judge, or something of that nature, or you're in first appearance court. The same things. Judges, some of the downtime that they have is after hours when they got to get orders signed. So you're there working for the people of Hillsborough County, and it's not a 9-to-5 job. You know what you're getting into. You have to make tough decisions, and people want to move on with their life.
What is your general judicial philosophy?
My judicial philosophy is to follow the law and be an impartial decision maker and make sure that everybody's treated fairly, every litigant, with dignity and respect. And the fact is that the bench is not a place for to legislate from the bench. I'm not running for legislature. I'm running for a circuit judge in Hillsborough County. If I wanted to be a legislature, I'd run for the House of Representatives in my district, but that's not my choice. My choice is to be a circuit judge for the people of Hillsborough County.
How do you deal with difficult people?
We have difficult people in every way of life, but what I tend to do is, in my situation, I see if there's a difficult person, I give them a rule. I will listen to your grievances if you give me the same respect and let me explain my position. I don't think being dismissive to somebody that's being rude is the answer, because especially if you're a judge, then again, you're losing that whole respect that you have done. So my rule would be, I've listened to you, sir. Now I'm going to tell you why I believe you're wrong and why I think that we need to do it this way.
What is your vision for the future of the judicial system?
I am glad to be practicing in the year 2015 because we've come a long way from the old paper dockets and the old stuff with technology. I think that technology is the greatest thing. E-filing and the JAWS calendar, and then it goes back to the overloaded dockets. I mean, to have the system, and it's great in our world that we can sit at home until 9 o'clock and file a document, and not have to run to the courthouse and get something done. And the thing is, the only problem I see though is that it's hard to navigate for those pro se litigants to be able to download documents or e-file. But I think technology is the greatest thing.
I'm going to second that. I think technology is the best thing that's ever happened. And since I started in 1999, so I'm only getting 16 years in. I think technology is awesome. To be able to pick up your iPad and have your entire case right here is awesome. I just have to figure out how I can post notes on it.
Well, if post notes or the greatest thing now with the JAWS and the civil side is the orders. The judges can pull up keywords and boom, the order's up.
Right.
And your whole file's right there at your fingertips.
Well, I love that idea. Just uploading them JAWS.
That's it.
Within a half an hour, you got electronic signature.
Right, it's
You
there.
got it.
It's done.
I agree with you on that one. If you had one of the roles of judges is to give an appearance of impartiality, an appearance, because once you cross that line, there's appearance that you're partial one side or another. You should disqualify yourself. But there may be times when it doesn't appear that way. But you yourself know that you have some bias, that there's something about the situation that you're saying, I can't be biased. Would you disqualify yourself without revealing the basis?
Don, absolutely. We're judges are people. We have our opinions that are bred in us. I would be the first to say, look, counsel approach the bench. I'm not going to tell you the reason why, but I think this is the case that I'm going to recuse myself. Basically, I'm doing it on my own volition. The way that people, and that way I'm not going into the details. One case is stronger than the other, or the issues that I have a problem with. I think the technical way to do it is to say, gentlemen, or opposing counsel or counseled ladies, I've made a decision that I don't think I want to be the judge that's going to be presiding on this issue.
It's, at least in law, in jury trial practice, we get to question the participants, the juries, to see if they've, based on their experience, a DUI case, has anyone had a DUI death, anyone that, where judges, we don't get that opportunity to ask any judges those questions. So we do rely on them to self-impose those questions that I probably shouldn't do this.
Right, and I think that it's a good idea because it builds on that respect. Hey, I had a case with Judge Hinson that was was a really tough case, but he didn't tell us why, but he was man enough or whatever to say, look, this is not a case I feel comfortable with, and I'm going to recuse myself.
What injustices have you witnessed inside or outside of a courtroom, and what responses did you take for those events or that event?
The injustice in the courtroom, it goes back to that rovitis in these outer lying counties. You've heard this explanation, get hometown, especially, I've been accused of being a member of the Tampa Club for a county distance away where judges made pretty bad rulings. And I basically, on one occasion, I didn't like the rulings they made. I non-suited the claim, knowing I wouldn't get that same judge because he was just a visiting judge. And that's the things, but unfortunately that happens. And the sad thing about it, a judge's decision could affect people for a lifetime. And I just knew that this particular incident that this judge was really going off on the deep end. I don't know, it wasn't me, it was just, I think he was taking it out on any Tampa lawyer that may have been in front of him. So I've seen that happen, and that's my action, what I took care of it. But,
What would you list as your greatest strengths? And we all have weaknesses. What would be some of what would be your weakness?
my greatest strengths, I'm a great listener, and the fact is I try to solve problems, and I'm a good communicator. But when I make a decision, especially with my clients, when it comes time to settle their cases or the issues, the evidentiaries, I explain it to them so they have a good grasp for why we're doing it. It's a trial strategy. Weaknesses, maybe a little bit hard on myself that, I may have done something wrong or I could have done it differently. But one thing that I learned from Judge Hinson, who was my cousin, who was a circuit and county judge, is the 24-hour rule. Because, judges, before you make that decision, you want to make sure you get it right. You've got people's lives in hand. You got lawyers that are time. You got litigants. You want to get it right. Don't rush to judgment. Do your own little research. But going again, Don, you don't want to do it. Take it under advisement. Waiting 6 weeks to 6 months. So I have the 24-hour rule. That's the biggest fear, that you get it wrong.
What would you say is your greatest accomplishment in your legal career?
My greatest accomplishment is that for the last 29 years, I've represented 1,000 clients throughout this state, and I've litigated 100 cases, and I've tried only 85 jury trials. And the greatest accomplishment is to be the voice of most clients in the legal field, to argue their position, and give them the to give them their day in court, to give them the best representation that I could give them.
Do you think that the court system is underrepresented by minorities or women?
Don, back when I started, maybe 27, 30 years ago, I would probably think there was all the old white male judges. When I started, it was only like 25. But I think in the last 20, 25 years, we've had great female judges, great minority judges, do an outstanding job for the people of Hillsborough County. So I think it's turned itself around. I think people want qualified people, regardless of their sex or race, that's going to follow the law and do the right thing for the people of Hillsborough County.
But you would agree with me that we are moving in a better direction to incorporate minorities and giving them an opportunity to show their wares.
No question about it. Like I said, 25 years ago, but in the last 10, 15 years, it has turned itself to the turn of the positive. I encourage everybody that feels that they're qualified, whether they're minority or woman or male, to run, if you feel that that's your desire to serve.
Well, we hope our program, Applaud You Judge, gives minorities, women, sign up, run for office, put your name in, and come on our show and tell the viewers exactly who you are and what expertise you possess. Do you believe judges should be involved in community service, and what type of community service have you been involved in the past?
Absolutely. I think that the greatest thing that judges need to show people out in Hillsborough County that you're just like them, that you're family-oriented. I've been active in the Chamber of Commerce. I've been active, as you follow on my Facebook. I'm active in a crew. I'm active in a golf tournament, past president of Tampa Bay Trial Lawyers. For the last 11 years, we've done golf tournaments that I've chaired, that we've raised over $60,000 to 501c corporations. I do a Children for Vision book bag in East Tampa every August. Those are kids that don't have book bags or school supplies. I do a lot of teaching in high schools, University of Tampa, and get active as much as I can, because people need to see that judges, they are human, they are people, but unfortunately sometimes they're called to make tough decisions on laws.
Who is your judicial role model?
I would say I'd have to go 3 of them. One of them would be my cousin Ed Hinson, who's a good listener. The other one was Judge Lazara, who's a federal judge now. I had the privilege of practice in front of him when he was in the civil side. And when you spend that many days with Bill Grable, you learn. Grable taught me a lot, especially in the criminal side. Grable was a very firm believer that he was fair with the law, but he always taught me one thing. He said, when you pass judgment on someone, you have to do it with dignity and respect, because when you sentence somebody, Don, you not only have the defendant's family there, you also have the victim's family there. And your decision is going to affect both families tremendously.
This sort of goes hand in hand with your your judicial role models, but what are some of the major influences in your life outside of the law?
My family,
Okay.
my faith, and the friendships and the kinship that I've formed in my career with other professionals. You know, and those are great for me because, like I said, I've earned the respect of a lot of other lawyers, not just civil, criminal, family, commercial litigators, and you know they've encouraged me to run because they want to see me on the bench. So that's something that I take with pride, that have influenced me to be a better person in my profession.
And if you could just tell the viewers, why should they vote for you as opposed to, at this point, you only have one person in opposition. It may be more come the closing, period ends in
May 1st,
May,
right.
the qualification period. So at this point, you have one identified. Why you as opposed to your candidate or opposition?
Well, one thing, I've been practicing longer than my opponent, and I have a more diverse practice than my opponent. And I know he was on a couple of weeks ago, and I think he indicated I was just a civil trial lawyer. I have handled criminal law. I've handled appellate issues. I've handled replevin, deck actions. I've been sometimes sent to family court because sometimes when you represent people in car accidents, they need divorce lawyers. I've basically picked up the phone and asked other family lawyers, hey, help me out here, and I've gone on their behalf. I'm also a certified mediator with the state Supreme Court since 1994. I'm also honored to be nominated on 2 separate occasions by the Judicial Nominating Committee for a judicial appointment by Governor Scott. And those judicial nominating committees, Don, they do a great job vetting the candidates. There's 33 people that apply, and only 6 people get sent up. And on 2 separate occasions, I've been sent up.
I'm done asking you questions. If you want to make a closing statement to those who are viewing this of who you are. If you want to recap, just let them know about Carl Hinson.
I would be greatly honored and for your vote next August. What you see, I ask you all to go to our websites, go look for our endorsements, look at the people backing us. If you want a judge that's going to be fair and impartial and with experience, I believe I'm the candidate in this group 3. Ask lawyers, ask other friends, and basically do research. But I would be honored to receive your vote next August to be your next circuit judge for the people of Hillsborough County.